This is the best of the Dan Le Batard show with the Stugotz podcast.
This is going to be weird. Izzy Gutierrez here. I mean, the music I don't know. It's
legendary Earth, Wind, and Fire. Shame on you.
No. I know who it was. I don't know if it has anything to do with why this is going to be weird. This is going to be weird because Sarah's not here. The shipping container is here, minus Billy. And Sarah, you're in Chicago.
I am.
And yet, we're still on ESPNU, but you are not.
I did not realize you would be on television today.
Yeah. I didn't realize it until yesterday when Mike told me. And when you told me you weren't going to be here, I was like, well, this is going to be an awkward situation. I'm going to be speaking to a ghost.
I hope they're using a super sexual shot of me as the still shot of whenever I talk.
They're using your cartoon placard that we have on the wall.
Perfect.
Even better. How are things, Sarah?
Living the dream, man.
That's it. Just living the dream as always.
Living the dream as always. I mean, I didn't spend all week hosting with Stu, so I'm not living as much of the dream as you are.
No, that was fantastic. That was and I'm doing it again on Monday, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Did you hear any of it?
I heard all of it.
Did you think that Stugotz and I vibed okay?
I thought that you were as quiet as you've ever been, just letting it all wash over you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people here. There's a lot of people here. I don't have to do all the talking.
That's true. The conversations that you two have launched me into two investigations. One is that I'm fairly certain that Dan and Pablo are vacationing together near the Baltic Sea due to some social media detective work. And two, I'm going to need to know a lot more about your Fruity Pebbles onesie because your story had a lot of holes and nobody dug. They just let it lit. They just let it lie, and there were a lot of holes.
Let's do that right now. For those who weren't listening, I was talking to Stugotz about sort of running into fans in public and whether he's ever been rude to them or in a bad situation or an awkward situation, maybe hungover, maybe drunk. And I was recalling a time this past weekend where I went down to the valet at a hotel I was at, and I was wearing a Fruity Pebble onesie. And what are your questions about this one?
Okay, first of all, it was apparent that you were lying when you said you did not want to be seen, because we all know that after you announced that the onesie was half unbuttoned and you were essentially shirtless with only the bottom half covering you, we all know that that's when you would most like to be seen.
Whoa. Seen and recognized are two different things. I wouldn't mind being seen as long as they had no idea who I was.
Okay. Still don't buy that.
Okay.
2, did I say A or B? Either way, 3.
Roman numeral 3.
Yes. I would like to know why you said that you were taking stuff to your car and you just decided to put it on. Why wouldn't you just throw it in a bag or over your shoulder or in a box or in a suitcase? Why would you need to put the outfit on to go down to the car?
Well, see, that's right. That's a hole. Thank you for asking that question. I did not fill in this information properly. I intended to wear it to the pool area where my friends were hanging out with and I know you know this, I don't know how many people know, a marshmallow mask on my head, and that's a DJ.
Yes, I've seen a photo of you with the marshmallow head on before.
Yes.
And because of some musician, right? There's a marshmallow head musician that you follow that I'm not cool enough to like because he does like EDM and stuff.
Yeah, I like that. That's perfect description.
Okay.
And so that was the plan, but then I had to get all this stuff down to the car. Now, I was holding the mellow mask, not really wearing it when I got downstairs, and put everything in the car really quickly. And, the words that I did not ever want to hear going down there was, "You look familiar," because that's just code for, hey, I know who you are. I'm just trying to be a little kind of cool about it and not really say, hey, that's Izzy Gutierrez. And so...
More questions.
Yes.
Why would you wear a Fruity Pebbles onesie to the pool?
Again, it was just as a joke to the group that I was with and, the mellow helmet on top of that. I could have chosen my Smells Like Teen Kitty adult onesie, which is a floating cat chasing a dollar like the cover of the Nirvana album.
Would it be uncouth for me to ask if wearing adult onesies is a gay thing?
It would not be uncouth. It would not be correct. It's not. It's just
It's
again,
an Izzy thing.
One of my friends, a girl named Maddie, she's into the onesie thing. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get a few onesies, and I'm going to join you in that. And I might wear a onesie at Lollapalooza later in your city. Later
Oh, you don't want to do that,
summer.
honey. That's going to be some swamp butt. You're going to want to wear much less clothing than that.
I'll be staying nearby. I can just go change real quick.
Right, and I guess you can always unzip it and be shirtless, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
But still, if there's any fleece happening on the inside of that, you're not going to be in a good place.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, maybe I can just
so
kind of fold it down.
My other questions are, was this a private pool area?
It was the W Hotel.
Okay, so if you were worried about being recognized at the valet, but your plan was to wear that full outfit to the pool, don't you think you'd also be recognized at the pool, especially once they saw your glistening abs?
No, because I'd already been to the pool for a while now. It had been a few hours. So I had known the people around me and was comfortable showing up in that and not worrying about them any further.
Okay, despite all your answers, I'm left in the same place, was that you were desperately hoping to be recognized shirtless in a Fruity Pebbles onesie carrying a marshmallow head.
Which is why if I ever got in trouble for anything in a court of law, I would never call you as a character witness for me because you've got me all wrong.
All right, well, the last question I need is that I need you, it's not a question, it's a demand. I'm going to need you to send a photo of the Fruity Pebbles onesie with you in it on Twitter, please.
I will
need
tweet
some visuals.
it. Can I do it with the mask on, even though you can't prove it's me?
Yes.
Because I do have that photo.
Yes,
Everyone knows what your abs look like.
I will
Izzy.
happily-
No.
Yeah,
There's no abs in
You
this
don't have
picture.
you don't
no
have
abs
it
in this
zippered
picture.
down?
Zipped all the way up.
Will
Zipped all the
fans
way
of
up.
Marshmallow Head be sad to see that he's lying across train tracks?
Wow, I should totally do that.
Or drowning in a pool.
I should do
wearing
like
a shirt.
a sexy photo shoot with the marshmallow helmet on.
If anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, which I would assume that they would, but search Izzy Gutierrez on Google Images, and you'll get him lying across the train tracks and inexplicably swimming with a shirt on.
I was so tired
leaning
in both of those
seductively against a
situations.
wall. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just tired all the time, right? Like, I'm too tired to take the shirt off.
Yeah,
I'm tired to lay
tiring.
down on the train tracks, and I'm leaning against the wall. No big deal.
Yeah. All right, well, feel free to go ahead and post that photo. I would like to imagine this situation that you're lying about.
I mean, I could one-up that. Like, I could wear it on Monday when I come in.
Ooh. I think that's a preferred choice.
I think I might go with
Will Stugotz be Feinbaum by Monday, or is he going to wait for Dan's return?
No, he's got to wait for Dan. I mean, come on.
'Cause that would be a good combo right there.
Maybe I can bring him a onesie and he can wear it too.
I would like to see Stugotz in a onesie because he is already child size. Fun size, I should say. Like a baby Snickers.
A baby Snickers. Anyway, maybe I'll bring in some popcorn. It'll be like a sleepover.
Perfect.
So, Sarah, you've been watching the finals, I take it?
I have.
Entertained? I know obviously Game 3 was pretty darn good.
Yeah, I mean, I was entertained by Game 3. What I loved about it was watching the shifting waves of opinion on Twitter where people were like, bring out the brooms. And then they were like, oh, put your brooms away. This one's all over for the Cavs. And I'm watching like, why do people think that the Warriors are out of this? There is plenty of time for them to put the foot on the gas. And that's exactly what happened. Like, I actually didn't think that the Cavs were going to win at any point in that game. That's how much I fear the Warriors' ability at any moment to take things over.
Yeah, I was watching on DVR. That's what night was it? Wednesday night. And yeah, I was tempted to just fast forward because I was like, the Cavs are pulling away. I was like, no, this is when the Warriors are most entertaining. Is when they're behind, especially on the road. But when they're behind, and when you know that they're going to take a ton of probably difficult shots, but those guys are going to have a good chance of making those. And man, like that was perfect Warriors. That's the Warriors I've been missing all year long because it normally looks too easy for them. But that was great.
And the point of not fast forwarding, particularly in these games, is that we have a tendency after the fact to try to look at the box score to tell us the story of the game. And you can't do that here because you would look at the numbers from LeBron and Kyrie and be like, oh, those guys did everything they could. You know, they got let down by their teammates again, which is true in part. You know, you still need to see Tristan Thompson not get out-rebounded by Steph Curry in the series. You still need Kyle Korver to hit shots. You still need J.R. Smith to show up. But if you're just looking at the box score and you feel as though LeBron and Kyrie were as good as you can be, you got to look at the end. LeBron had 39, Kyrie had 38, but neither of them scored down the stretch. Cleveland was 0 for 8 in the last 245, outscored 11-0 down the stretch. They got tired and they made bad choices. The things that were working for Kyrie Irving early, he went away from late, and he started doing that thing where he dribbles around and throws up street ball style shots when he was efficient and effective when he just made a choice to either take the shot or go to the bucket and not dilly-dally around. And if you look at the box score and try to tell the game story from that, you miss the shift where the Warriors pounced when they realized that there was fatigue and there was tension occurring on the part of the Cavs. And that was it. That was the game right there, because it was as close as can be throughout. And it looked like at the end the Cavs were going to pull away. And then they either got tired or they got soft. But you have to watch it progress to get that out of it.
Yeah, that's why I don't like people harping on the Cavs were minus 12 and LeBron was sitting because he was on the floor down the stretch. But there's a lot we're going to dissect, and obviously with these finals, Game 4 tonight, and we're going to dissect some LeBron sound in a little bit. We'll talk to Tim Kurkjian at 11 o'clock, Kevin Arnovitz at 11:30 this morning. A lot to get to there with the finals.
Dan Le Batard.
Texter writes in, my sister with a very confused question just asked, how do you even like these guys on the radio? They don't even talk about anything. To which I responded, that's the point.
Stugotz.
That guy gets the show.
Yes.
That guy's sister needs to be disowned, sent out of the family.
You get the show.
You get the show.
You get the show.
Yes.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Couple things, Sarah. First thing, whatever I called that onesie before was wrong. It's the Cat Cobain onesie.
Okay.
So much safer.
Okay,
and I just realized, as I saw my reflection here, that I don't know if you heard the last couple of shows. I believe it was the last one we were discussing whether you would want your pinky or your thumb if you had to cut one off.
Right. Obviously, you'd want your thumb.
So you would get rid of the pinky, right? I just realized I'm wearing a shirt that does that little, what is that, surfer thing called? What's that called, guy?
The Shaka Bra.
The Shaka Bra.
The Shaka Bra.
So it's a nod to...
You saw last night, man, the Penguins almost literally hung 10 on the bread.
I forgot he was a hockey fan. That's right.
I've just looked up.
We might have to turn to you later when our PK Subban conversation comes up.
I've looked up the Cat Cobain onesie. That is, I prefer that to the Fruity Pebbles.
Yeah.
I like that.
Fruity Pebbles makes me think of Fruity Pebbles, so I like that one better.
Okay. We just came out with that Wicked Game song. I'm sure you heard that there was an unfortunate turn of events in which I learned that both Stugotz and I liked that song for Sexy Time, which ruined it for me forever. But also unfortunate is, inexplicably, the first thing that comes up on YouTube if you search my name is our discussion about that. And my dad, inexplicably, was bored during a closing. He does real estate law. And decided to YouTube my name. Again, I have no idea why. This is a terrible idea and not something that you should do in any circumstances. Just Googling or searching in any way. But the first thing that comes up is Stugotz and Sarah Spain have the same favorite sex song.
Man.
And so my dad proceeded to watch us talk about songs we like to bone to.
That's the first thing that comes up, Sarah? You've done so much.
Yep. That's it's unfortunate. There's a lot of other weird stuff that comes up that is super weird. But that really takes the cake for things that my dad didn't need to spend 5 minutes listening to.
Power of Stugotz right there. Put him
my problem with when I forget that I'm on the radio and people can actually hear me.
Yeah, you should probably remember that. You're on the radio a lot, Sarah. You should recognize when you're on.
I know, but it's more fun if I just pretend I'm just talking to you and that there's no consequences.
And if
Sarah took it over. All of a sudden, it's now become a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. Why? Because they so suspect.
So what's the question or the point?
So what I'm saying to you is this. This year, what happened was, I'm not talking about the underlings competing against one another. I'm talking about the absence of competition until the finals. I'm saying to you that...
Hold, time out. Wait, hold. Because I have other points to make, too. Hold on a second.
Really? What's your cue there? Because... if it were me,
hold on. The Sixers had been to...
It's got to be the shape of his mouth.
I would look at Max's face every time. And if Max has that kind of confused, like, what's happening face, I'd go right to first take. And that's exactly what he had when that cut-in started. So, Sarah, as we shift over to finals talk, LeBron had his off-day media session yesterday, and had a few things to say. Brian Windhorst wrote something on ESPN.com basically dissecting the things that he had to say and sort of translating a little bit. One of the questions that came up, and this, to me, I think came up because you look at LeBron and, he was asked about twice now, essentially, facing a team in the midst of their dynasty attempt, first with the Spurs back in 2007, and now with the Warriors for 3 years in a row, and then sort of transitioned to Kevin Durant and whether him being with the Warriors is fair. And here's what he had to say about that.
Is it fair? I don't care. I mean, I think it's great. I mean, it's great for our league. I mean, right now, look at our TV ratings. Look at the money our league is pouring in. I mean, guys are loving the game. Our fans love the game. I mean, who am I to say if it's fair or not? I mean, no matter who am I going against, if I'm going against 4 Hall of Famers, like I said before the series started with Draymond, Klay, Steph, and KD, or if I'm going against 2 or whatever the case may be, I'm always excited to play the game, and I'm not one to judge or say if it's fair or not if guys are adding, players to their team. So, I mean, that's what you want to do. I mean, is it fair that the New York Yankees in the 90s was adding piece after piece after piece after piece? I mean, if you have the opportunity to do that, is it fair that the Cowboys added Deion Sanders? I mean, listen, it happens. It's sports. You can have an opportunity to sign one of the best players, and you can do it. Go ahead and do it. Why not? If I become an owner, I'm going to try to sign everybody.
I love how it says voice of LeBron James, Cav Ford, and GM on the screen there. Sarah, yesterday I was saying that he did this to himself because he's the one who kind of started that trend.
Right.
What do you think about what he said there?
I think he handled it really well. You're right. He essentially helped change the power structure in the NBA and allow for players to have much more agency over their own futures. And so it would be difficult for him, even though the situation is very different. And he points it out at a different point that, Durant's going to a fully formed team that was a championship team and then one block away from being a championship team again, whereas he went to Miami and they had stripped the roster down to one player, so he created a team around him and then went to the Cavs, and it wasn't quite as extreme, but it was very similar where he created a team around him. So I think he handles it really well in terms of not being able to give people the opportunity to think he's taking cheap shots at Durant, but he still is honest about how he sees the situation differently. And you're right, he can't complain because this is the Dr. Frankenstein. This is the monster coming back to kill him.
Well, here's where he tries to separate that, though. Here's where he talks about whether his career is anything like Durant's, given that they both made mega free agent moves.
I don't think that our careers are the same as far as changing teams. Their team was already kind of put together, and you just implement a guy that's ready to sacrifice, a great talent, a guy that's willing to do whatever it takes to help the team win. But that team, they knew what they were about, and he just had to come in and just do what he had to do, and that's what he's been doing. For me, when I left here to go to Miami, we had to build something. We brought in, 8 or 9 guys, and we had to build something. And when I came back here, we built something again. But I can definitely appreciate the simple fact of him either reshaping his game or just sacrificing maybe some shots here, sacrificing having the ball in his hands, all the time. Who wouldn't want to sacrifice playing on a Golden State team or a San Antonio team or a Cleveland team when the ultimate result can actually compete for a championship?
You know what, sir? We're going to have to play that again because there's a lot to dig into there, and a lot of it is just digging at Kevin Durant. Is it not? And
I have some commentary about the things that he's been dropping in throughout his commentary that I think is unnecessary and that the media would fill in for him, but when he says it, it doesn't make him look good.
Hey, buddy, the wait is over.
We've got Joe Harper in here. He's a polygraph specialist.
He's very intimidating. He's a nice man, but physically he's very intimidating, and he has a bullet in his neck.
The man, the myth, the legend, Joe Harper, makes his return June 21st for the second installment of Stugotz.
Are your apologies to Dan sincere after you make fun of his fat face?
Yes.
That'll be a no.
Oh, man. He said Stugotz is the worst liar since O.J. Simpson.
If the Heat and the Knicks played in the Eastern Conference Finals, would you root for the Heat?
Or nerd.
Yes.
Liar.
Let's go Knicks.
Oh! Stugotz, Joe Harper, collision course.
Were you really the big man on campus in college, as you have claimed?
Yes.
Oh, I think that's the truth.
No, it's not.
Oh! June 21st. You won't want to miss this, buddy.
Dan Le Batard.
Many texters writing in here, Dan, you're not a Beatle, you're Meatloaf. Is that what I would be? What would I be if I were a band?
Stugotz.
There's a band called Cake.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Get instant gold status at Shell. Join the Fuel Rewards program now at fuelrewards.com/gold. And now your SportsCenter update. The Penguins took Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Final away from the Predators by the score 6-0. Game 6 is Sunday in Nashville. Tonight it's Game 4 of the NBA Finals.
Nice.
Between the Warriors and the Cavaliers at 9 p.m. Eastern on ABC. We'll have to figure out why that has to be different. And finally, Phil Collins recently kicked off his Not Dead Yet tour, his first such outing in nearly 10 years. Now, however, the tour has been postponed after Collins injured himself in a fall. According to a statement, Collins suffers from drop foot as a result of a back operation, which makes it difficult to walk. He rose in the middle of the night to go to the toilet and slipped in his hotel room, hitting his head on a chair. He was taken to a hospital where he had stitches for a severe gash on his head close to his eye. Collins is said to be recovering well, but will be kept under observation for 24 hours. As a result, he's postponed 2 upcoming shows in London, which have been rescheduled for late November. The tour is set to resume Sunday in Cologne, Germany.
Now I feel bad that I was about to tell you that I don't really like Phil Collins.
For all the latest headlines and information, tune at the SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day. It's just sad to think he needed like a medic alert like type of thing. That's perfect.
Yeah, I've
for that
fallen
commercial.
and I can't get up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's Phil Collins.
Yeah. I do like In the Air Tonight, obviously, but you can pretty much take anything else. Susu Studio, hate it.
What? How could you hate that?
It's a terrible song.
All right. Once again, you're not going to be a character witness for me. So wait, there was something about the LeBron discussing, or me talking about the idea of LeBron facing these dynasties that you didn't like, or you didn't like what LeBron had to say about it?
Yeah, so in that Windhorse column where he's sort of like not live, but he reacts to all of what LeBron said and says, here's some background on this. Somebody asked him, 10 years ago you began your finals run against a team that was in the midst of a dynasty. Now you're up against a team that looks like it's built to last, blah, blah, blah. And LeBron said, well, I think it's just part of my calling to go against teams in the midst of a dynasty. To me, that's once again him trying to lay out how his circumstances are so difficult. Meanwhile, at one point when he was going to Miami and he was not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, he was creating and thought he was building what was to be the kind of dynasty that every other team would look at and say, we can't get through this. Or if you look at the Eastern Conference, people would say, with LeBron in the East, there are guys that are going to feel like the Patrick Ewings of the Bulls era, right? Where you never were going to get past that Jordan team. Same with LeBron. So for him to sort of spin that as his calling is to be going up against teams that are mid-dynasty, that's...
it's peak LeBron. It's classic LeBron.
It feeds into what Stephen A. has been talking about, which is this idea of, we don't need you to tell us you're averaging triple doubles in the final. Like, we all know you're killing it. It then just becomes either A, I'm patting myself on the back for how well I'm doing, even though my team is losing, or A, I'm setting up the case for the offseason where I can complain about how I don't have any help, and it's clearly not my fault that I'm losing.
That's good. You know what? We'll get back to him digging on Kevin Durant a little bit later. But so Stephen A., I haven't heard this sound yet, but apparently, as you said, Stephen A. said that he can't be the greatest of all time if these things happen to him. We have that sound right here. In a second.
I do not want to hear another single damn word about being the GOAT, the greatest of all time. You do not get swept twice in the NBA Finals in your career. I don't care who it's against. Even AI got you one against the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe and the crew. You do not have an NBA Finals record of winning less than 40% of your games, and you are considered the best ever. Stop. That's all I'm asking. One of the greatest, yes. The greatest, that conversation officially ceases to exist.
So he not only said, hey, we don't need you to tell me about your stats, He said, if you get swept in the finals twice, you're officially not in the conversation for the GOAT.
Yeah. And listen, anything I say is biased because of my Jordan obsession and because I fully admit to being a prisoner of nostalgia in that you can't recreate what it felt like for me during the Jordan era now. I'm a different person. I'm in a different place. I'm now trying to analyze versus just take it in as a fan. And I was young, and it was, this it overwhelmed my city. But I do think that there's so many different ways that we try to compare these two. And it is unfair to say, oh, well, LeBron loses in the finals and Michael never did, except to say that Michael never lost in the finals, never, when he hit his peak.
About you confronting greatness and doing damage against it. Now, Kevin Durant may have hurt himself because, again, the road to prosperity, the road was paved easier because he took the road. Listen, he took the road less traveled. But the flip side is LeBron James' greatness in this finals has helped cement the greatness of Kevin Durant because as great as LeBron James has been, it hasn't been better than Kevin Durant.
Yes, it has.
And that's what the deal has been. No, it has not.
Ooh, there's a lot there.
Yes.
Did he say Durant took the road less traveled?
Yeah, because nobody's done it.
Well,
nobody's done the...
Sort of missing the intent there.
Right.
Also, I think that Durant has been better than LeBron.
You think he's been better this series?
Yep.
Why? I mean, LeBron's doing everything for his team. KD's got some benefit of having these teammates that are drawing people's eyes.
Agreed. KD's team is better, and so there can be more of a balanced effort. But you need look no farther than the fourth quarters where KD is outscoring LeBron 33-11, I think, in the fourth quarters of games. You look at the end of that tight game, which team finished? And it was the Warriors. LeBron had an opportunity with Draymond with 4 fouls, forcing him to drive with Kevin Durant waiting in the lane for him and to prove one-on-one, mano-a-mano in a position where he usually succeeds, which is taking the ball to the hole. And instead, he went around and then eventually passed the ball. Meanwhile, next play, Kevin Durant strolls up and hits a dead 3 right over him. Listen, these are very specific instances and like little occurrences. But if you're trying to build a case for which one's better, of course LeBron is shouldering more, and his doesn't just come down to scoring. He has to do, But the what Kevin Durant has done defensively to slow him down offensively, and then what he's taxed him with on the offensive side in terms of LeBron tiring himself out trying to play defense, I think he's been better in this series. Now, of course, he's on the winning team. That's easy to say.
I was thinking about what you got cut off, right? Like what you were saying before we went to First Take, and I realized how weird it must be for you, way more than me, because all of a sudden you're talking and you just hear Steve.
That was like Inception, because she was talking about a Stephen A. point, and Stephen A. interrupted the point. By the way, to Stephen A.'s point, I don't know how much this matters. Granted, it was a 5-game series back then, but Michael Jordan got swept 2 times in the first round by great teams, the Boston Celtics. But so you can't get swept in the finals twice and be GOAT, but you can get swept twice in the first round and be GOAT.
Or just not make the finals. That's worse than getting swept in the finals.
Right. Well, that's what I was going to say, is that there is a sort of silliness to the argument of, well, LeBron's lost in the finals and Jordan never did, but LeBron's been to the finals more. Except the only thing I would say is that when Michael Jordan was at his peak, he went to the finals every year, other than when there was that baseball hiccup in the middle, and he won every time. So if you're not allowing a ramp up at all, which we allowed with LeBron as well, we allowed him to ease his way into becoming the dominant player that he is, where he's going to the finals every year. We're really digging deep to find ways to criticize LeBron in that case, but I do think it's worth pointing out that it would be hard for me to imagine Michael Jordan-led team getting swept in the finals. Once, twice, at all. Again, prisoner of nostalgia, though.
It is America's favorite pastime, is nitpicking and being critical of LeBron James.
Right. Well, sometimes he makes it easy.
Right. Mostly in Miami. We should note, by the way, I'm not the only Melo fan here in the booth. Paul Feinbaum is now sporting a marshmallow hat. So.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
I like how you set it up so it looks like I'm Feinbaum talking, which is great. I've never looked better.
Fantastic. And the hat looks great on you.
Catch more of the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz, 10 to 1 Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPNU.
Dan Le Batard.
I know what you like, and I give it to you to make you a junkie so that you're listening and you can't help yourself on the stuff that I got to force feed you. But I know what you like. and I'll give it to you sparingly just to get you addicted.
Stugotz.
You'll stay right there addicted, and every once in a while, I'll give you smack that you don't like, but that you need. It's medicine you need. It's the whole formula. We know what you like. It's why you're addicted, even though you hate that part of the show.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
This music makes me feel like I have to do something really important. Like, I'm either like welcoming in some sort of royalty or, you know what, Tim Kurkjian. Tim, how are you?
Go.
I'm well, Izzy. I'm well, Sarah. How are you guys?
Doing pretty well. I don't think you're going to laugh nearly as much because there are no lookalikes today because Dan and Stu are not here. But we do have callers for you. We have some baseball questions for you. Let's go right to the phone, because I personally don't really have a question for you. Is that okay, Tom?
Quite all right, Izzy. Don't worry.
We'll go to Kevin. Kevin, you're on with Kurkjian.
Hey, Tom. I want to know, do you think Derek Jeter retired early because he knew A-Rod was coming back that next season and he didn't want to deal with him at all?
No. I think Jeter retired because he played 20 years, because he was 40 years old, and because he knew that he couldn't be a really good player anymore. And when you reach that level, you don't want to just go out there and be mediocre. So he had this all planned. His entire life was planned from the beginning, and I think he had this in mind, and I don't think it had anything to do with A-Rod.
My fault, Sarah, by the way, because you could have several questions for Tim Kurkjian. Do you have anything you wanted to throw out there before I go ahead?
I was actually going to ask a question if what his impression so far of how the Cubs have handled the Addison Russell story has been.
Well, this is a tricky situation, and I think this has got to come from Addison Russell first and foremost, and the Cubs are going to have to sit and talk to him as they have. They're going to have to sit and talk to him again and figure out what's the best course of action here, but they have to trust their player. They also have to let all the other things take place. So this is a very complicated situation, and they better get it right before they start putting them out there again, obviously.
Yeah, Tim, is the trickiest part of it that we're basically responding off of a social media comment, and there are no sort of official complaints?
Yes, and that's what social media does now. It brings up stories that normally wouldn't be there, and it puts teams in very difficult situations because social media spreads so quickly. So the Cubs have to get all the answers first and then make some comments of real concrete value.
Let's go to Mike. Mike, you're on ESPN Radio with Tim Kurkjian. Mike. Nope. Carlos, you got on ESPN Radio with Tim Kurkjian.
Tom, what's more impressive, a pitcher that could throw 2,000 strikes or a hitter that could hit 600 home runs?
I mean, 2,000 strikeouts or 600 home runs? Well, 600 home runs is more impressive. There are only 9 of those in Major League history, and there's certainly more than 9 guys that have struck out 2,000 in a career. Strikeouts are at an all-time high these days. A lot more guys are going to be getting to 2,000 before this is over. But 600 homers is pretty darn impressive when we've been playing 125 years, and 9 guys have done it.
Tim, the juiced ball conversation has picked up some steam the last week or so, with home runs being on this record pace for this year after just 3 years ago being pretty
up
low.
43%.
Right, 43%. Your initial thoughts when you hear juiced baseball theories again?
Well, I heard this last year, and call me the most naive guy in the world, but I'm not buying it. I think our hitters today are bigger and stronger than they've ever been. And I think our pitchers are so good that when they throw to the location they're trying to throw to, our hitters have no chance against the best pitchers. But when the pitchers miss in that one great bat path that so many of these pitchers have, they don't just hit a line drive to right field. They hit it 25 rows up. So we have to give the hitters, despite all the strikeouts, a little bit more credit that there are tremendously strong guys these days. Now, if I found out the ball was juiced, would I be stunned? No, I wouldn't, but I'm not buying that. I think we just have a lot of really good, really strong guys these days who swing and miss all the time, But when they barrel one, it goes a long way.
Tim, Jose Canseco, and Mark McGuire were pretty strong. Those guys were really strong.
Right, but they would be the outliers then, so they would fit in with the trend now as opposed to being the outliers, right? So
well,
perhaps
remember there was the big
wasn't as strong.
There was a big 1987 is the ball juiced season, and some guys that year who never hit home runs hit a whole bunch. So we hear this all the time. I've never been a big conspiracy theorist because so much has to happen in order for the balls to change. Now, I've talked to some pitchers who think the ball is harder. The seams are raised, and that makes it, a ball that can travel, farther. But I'm not buying it. I don't think there's anything significant there.
Charlie, you're on with Kurkjian. Charlie.
Hey, good morning, Tim, Sarah, and Izzy. It's Charlie from Vegas. Tim, you gave me a three-team parlay the past couple of weeks that have disappointingly lost. Can you please help me out with another one? 3 winners today. Thank you.
No, Charlie, I'm not going to help you out anymore. And here's why. This is the beauty of baseball is you can't predict baseball. I used to play basketball with a bookie. He was a great guy, and he told me that anyone who tries to bet on baseball is a complete idiot because it's impossible to predict. And I totally agree with that. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a pitching matchup that you say, well, this obviously favors this guy right here, and we call that a reverse lock, and the opposite happens. The Padres just swept the Cubs the other day. I mean, that hasn't happened, where the team with the worst record in the league sweeps the defending champion since 1973. But in basketball, you got a pretty good idea how this is going to work because Kevin Durant and LeBron James and are touching the ball in every possession. That's how you kind of guarantee how things are going to happen. There are no guarantees in baseball, so sorry, Charlie, I'm not going to tell you who's going to win tonight because I have no idea, and that's the best part about it.
Mike, true or false, Stugotz bets on baseball multiple times during the week.
On baseball?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought you were going to ask something crazy like snooker.
No, I'm just saying.
In which case the answer would have been yes on snooker.
Just confirms that he's an idiot.
Stugotz is an idiot. Yeah. So, Tim, there's a story on 538 with the headline, Ryan Howard's career is dead. The shift killed it. And it talks about how, it's not his age or his speed or anything else that's kind of removed him from the league, but it's the shift. What do you think is the next trend in baseball that might make players prematurely removed from the league?
Well, the shift is worth talking about here, Sarah. I'll try to answer your question in a second. Look, I'm sorry. I just can't go with a hitter who says, I can't hit it over there anymore, okay? And this is the only place I can hit it. If they shift that much and you can't beat the shift, then you're going to have to make the adjustment and learn how to hit the ball the opposite way or find a way to play even though they have a shift because it's going to be legal for as long as I can tell, and it should be legal. But it's up to our hitters today, and some of them are really bad at this, to say, all right, I'm going to hit it over there now. But most guys just have that one beautiful swing, which we talked about, and they can't do anything other than that one bat pass. So I'm not going to say Ryan Howard was run out by the shift. Well, he was, technically, but that's his fault for not making the adjustment. And anyone else who complains about the shift, sorry, you have to make the adjustment as opposed to the game adjusting to you.
Gabriel, you're on with Kurkjian. Go ahead.
Hey, Tom, my Diamondbacks, how are they going to do this year? Are they going to fizzle out?
I don't think so. I think the Diamondbacks are pretty good, and I think they're going to stay pretty good for the rest of the year. And I think with the trouble the Cardinals are having at the moment, the Mets have had most of the year, the Giants have had all year, I think there's a playoff spot open for the Diamondbacks if they continue to play well. I think they could win a wild card. I think the Dodgers win that division, and Colorado's right with them. But I think there's a place for Arizona. Plus, they're getting A.J. Pollock back in a couple weeks, let's say, and that's really going to give them a boost. Their pitching's pretty good, and they're starting to build a little faith in what they're doing there now.
Last one for Kurkjian here. Danny, you're on with Kurkjian. Go ahead.
Hey, Tom. Boxers or Brees?
I wear boxers. At age 60, at my size, I look totally ridiculous in briefs. So I haven't worn briefs in like 30 years, and it was bad then.
You look totally ridiculous, as if you're going anywhere, just like, walking around in your underwear.
Right, but at least I can see myself in them, and I look totally ridiculous in them, so I'm not even going to let myself look at them.
Good to know. Good to know. You're a never nude or some version of that. Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate the time.
You should hang out. Thanks, Tom.
Okay, see ya.
Don Le Batard.
Is Stugotz shady? I mean, that one's going to come back 100%.
Yeah, I have. Thanks, there.
Stugotz.
I just don't understand how you object to the idea that, it's kind of amazing. I don't understand how you would even object to the idea of anybody in the world calling you shady.
Listen, I know I'm shady. I know what I am, okay? I'm more self-aware than you think. I am shady. I'm one of the shadiest people out there.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Sarah, we were talking about it with Kurkjian there for a sec. It's your account, the Chicago Cubs. Explain, if you can, the Addison Russell situation and how sort of detailed or problematic it is for the Cubs.
Right. We don't have a lot of detail right now. So Wednesday night during the Cubs game and also the NBA Finals game, Addison Russell's wife posted on Instagram a photo of herself at the beach and then basically a message saying that he cheated on her and it was time for her to move on, and essentially implied that they were going to get a divorce or break up. And several comments down, a friend of hers, I think she was getting some flack for announcing it socially and publicly, and a friend of hers came to her defense and alleged that Addison had engaged in physical abuse, and particularly in front of their two young children. Now, Addison's a young guy, 23, I think, still. So they obviously got married very young, and they have two young kids. And at this point, that's really all we have in terms of reportage. The Cubs have come out and said that they spoke with him. He had been out of the lineup for 2 days in favor of Javi Baez based on his play before this even hit. And Joe Madden alluded to potentially having had a conversation with him about whatever was going on in his life that maybe was affecting his play, that he hadn't lost confidence in him as a player, but wanted to put Javi in for a bit and see if he could come back around. Russell issued a statement yesterday saying, "Any allegation I've abused my wife is false and hurtful for the well-being of my family. I'll have no further comment." Cubs released their own statement essentially saying that he was not in uniform last night. They wanted to let him work through the matter. They were not considering it a suspension. They were just electing to have him not come to the ballpark, not be in uniform, and give him some space to kind of figure out what's going on. Right now, it amounts to a third-party allegation on social media, which back in the old days we might think is nothing, but now is enough. I mean, we take enough information. I mean, our president essentially makes political statements and official White House statements.
Yeah, that's fine, Sarah, but have we ever done this? Have we taken a social media comment and turned it into a potential criminal investigation like this?
I would have to think about that, but I mean, we've certainly think about how often we're willing to use social media statements as fact in other cases, whether that's investigating whether Garoppolo's leaving the Patriots because of a post, whether that's LeBron James' mom and some other NBA player being involved in something, whether it's, there's an infinite number of instances where something has been tweeted or shared, whether that's Jeremy Tunsil or what's his name, Laramie Tunsil, with the bong. Wasn't that who that was?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we now treat the gas mask. We now treat social media as just another way of getting information, and it skips the PR level of a team representative or communications director and goes straight to the source, and we now have to give it the same weight. Now, of course, there cannot be any sort of prosecution of him based solely on this third-party social media allegation. There needs to be actual facts and investigation done. What's really tricky, Izzy, which we know about these instances, is in terms of particularly domestic violence and sexual assault, the name of the person accused often is made public and then is always associated with this, whether or not it comes to bear that they are officially convicted or even officially charged. And that's an unfortunate side effect, but there's a lot of research that's been done into the name of the alleged abuser going public allows others to come forward. We've seen it in really public cases like Bill Cosby, and we've seen it in lesser cases. And a lot of the research that's been done has pointed to the fact that it's worth the cost in order to best find these instances and bring them to light. And so rarely do we see them actually get charged or convicted or prosecuted in any legal manner, that I think people are searching for ways to better tip the scales in that way. I think the Cubs have handled it about as well as possible, and I would venture a guess that that's because of the Aroldis Chapman situation last year, where midway through a season they took on a guy who had a history of this and who had served a suspension for it, and it made them incredibly aware of the language to use. Anthony Rizzo, I think, had the very best comment, and that was to say, I love Addison, and we have some really good memories together, but I don't know what's going on outside of this clubhouse. And I think it's too rare for players to say, look, I know him as a player and a teammate. I do not know him as a husband or a guy outside of here. So I cannot say that there is unconditional support unless I know the facts.
Right.
And
I don't think...
I think the only way to handle it.
Well, regardless of, situation, teammate, what have you, you don't know what people are doing inside their own homes, and that's the right thing to say. But here I'm curious about is how we're going to take this. Like, are we going to allow Addison Russell to take the field again and not be judgy because we're talking about, again, a social media post, a comment on a social media post being the accusation here. And it normally we don't want to see him, right? It's like, oh, you've done this, you get off the field, you deserve to be punished for it. We have no idea where this can take us.
I would say I disagree with Kurkjian, who said that they shouldn't let him on the field until it's resolved. These can be incredibly long processes. And because this is not a situation where police were called, where she went to the police or the hospital, or there was any indication of a recent incident or a specific incident, this is a really gray area. And I'm sure there's going to be people coming out of the woodwork saying that I'm saying this because it's a Cubs player. But MLB is also investigating Rays catcher Derek Norris right now because his former fiance claimed abuse. Listen, I think usually where there's smoke, there's fire. I think it's very odd and very rare for false accusations to be made. We know it has happened, but it is very rare. And so I would never say that just because it's an allegation that we don't have video or photos of that doesn't mean it didn't happen. But I would say that it is very difficult to take a player off the field for a length of time, an undetermined length of time, for something like this, which is a third-party allegation. Again, I think it's different than, say, if she had called the police and they'd come to the house, if she had some sort of very specific, and it was in her own words, allegation of abuse on a specific occasion. I think it's really difficult to do this based off of a friend's accusation, which is not to say that I don't think it happened, but that it's a lot more difficult to investigate and decide punishment in the now before you've done any real reportage on it.
Don Batard.
Texter writes in, does ESPN brass listen to this show? They can't.
Stugotz.
How could this possibly continue in a prime spot for this long? It's just truly awful radio.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And now your SportsCenter update. Former Buffalo Bills wide receiver James Hardy was found dead floating near the Maumee River in Fort Wayne, Indiana. The cause of death has not been determined. He was 31 years old. The New England Patriots have signed wide receiver Julian Edelman to a 2-year contract extension worth up to $15 million, a source told ESPN's Adam Schefter. ESPN's Mike Reese reports that the extension includes a $5 million signing bonus. And finally, the U.S. Coast Guard picked up a 32-year-old man and his dog from an inflatable duct-taped watercraft when it started to take on water Wednesday in Gastineau Channel near Juneau, Alaska. The Coast Guard says in a release that the duct-taped boat was homemade. The Guard says the man, who was not identified, was not wearing a life jacket. An off-duty Coast Guard member saw the unsafe craft and called it in. The Coast Guard delivered the man, dog, and boat to Douglas Harbor in Juneau. For all the latest headlines and information, tune into SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day. A couple quick tweets before we get to Kevin Arnovitz. One, watching Is Gutierrez staring off into space, talking to Sarah Spain's disembodied voice is what I imagine talks with God are like.
You don't get the show.
It's funny the messages that you get versus the ones that I get.
And here's another one. You guys keep calling him Tom. Way to be professional.
You don't get the show.
I wish I was allowed to flirt with you. I think our sexual sensibilities would greatly overlap.
Huh. Well.
So very different experiences for me. That
guy. Let's go to this guy, Kevin Arnovitz, on the Shell Pentel Performance Line. Kev, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. So last year at this time, we saw LeBron James look like the most energized person on the floor, despite having gone to, at the time, 6 straight finals, and we're all like, wow, that dude's amazing. And now we're all talking about how tired he is. Is it a result of the results, or are he and the Cavs kind of tired?
They're playing against an infinitely more talented team. I mean, I think that's the biggest takeaway from this series is it's not a rematch, right? They might be wearing the same uniforms. Much of the personnel is the same, and the Warriors with Kevin Durant don't resemble the same team. And in terms of sheer matchup, it isn't the same. And his exhaustion, or the appearance of his exhaustion, is directly proportional to just the absolute firepower on the other side of the floor.
Going into that third game, I think there were people who imagined that the Warriors might let up a little. There might be a combination of some home cooking for the Cavs, their bench playing a little bit better at home, and also the Warriors sort of just letting up a little because of the dominance of the first 2 games. After the way that they managed to finish Game 3, do you think that there's any chance that we get a Game 4 where we see that inevitable letdown?
No, I think this is a team not unlike its drive for 73 about a year and a half ago, or that early winning streak in the season. No, they want this. And I think there's this sort of, kind of tail to the curve on the chart where, like, the minute it becomes this insurmountable feat, 16 games in a row, they want to do this. I mean, this is the most historic thing. In some ways, I think they feel that it would answer sort of the disappointment of last season where they were the best regular season team in history and fell up short, kind of that Patriots thing that happened, and that this in some ways, I don't want to say exonerates because they have nothing to apologize for, but I think this is a real thing, and it has never been done, and it might be even more impressive than 73 wins.
Talking to Kevin Arnovitz of ESPN.com. Kevin, where do you stand with Kyrie Irving in terms of just his stature in the league, what he is? Can he be the leading man on a team? It just feels like he's a great, great sidekick, but probably couldn't be a leading guy.
I mean, I don't want to say he's a novelty act because I think there's so much more skill there. I personally love watching him handle and love watching him finish. I mean, just in that regard, I don't think there's anybody, including Curry, that is as dynamic. My issue is I don't know what else he's doing on the floor to help you when he's not doing that. He's a decent spot-up shooter. I don't think he has great floor instincts in terms of finding plays and opportunities that might be on the weak side of the floor. Or I think he's got a feel for the game insofar as that tunnel between him, the defender, and the rim. But I don't think there's a greater holistic approach to the game the way you would see with point guards like, I mean, you could start with Chris Paul, obviously Steph Curry, and others. And he's a terrible defender. I mean, he's a magnet on screens. And so, look, I mean, he was a great point guard on a great championship team last season and performed incredibly well at the biggest moment. So, but if you want to look at the larger player, that's kind of where I have him. But look, there are worse things to be than like one of the best handlers and finishers in the league. Like that's 40% of your grade as a point guard. So I don't want to discount it, but I just don't think there's the whole game there. And you know, I mean, in that regard, maybe he's like the 8th or 9th best point guard in a league that is laden with point guards. So I don't want to be overly insulting, but I just think his game lacks the totality of those other ones.
Kevin Stugotz likes to talk about how he'll have an asterisk by Kevin Durant's name if they do win this title, which seems almost inevitable at this point. I think a lot of fans would agree based on the path that he took to get to his first championship. But given a bit of time and space, we tend not to remember the specifics of championship winners, whether that's the opponent that they faced or the team that they were on. We just remember the stats and the numbers. So do you think Kevin Durant needs to win elsewhere, or if he puts together a dynastic couple years with the Warriors, that'll serve his legacy well enough?
I mean, I kind of think that's an absurd notion. I mean, first of all, you don't have fixed
everything I just said.
Which
part?
With much respect to Stugotz, I mean, first of all, look what the guy is doing. I mean, in some ways, he took the ultimate challenge, which is, hey, you're going to go to one of the best teams in NBA history, and he's actually going to make them better. I mean, how do you make a team that can't get better? He's about to put together one of the greatest playoff portfolios and finals portfolios ever in terms of sheer performance and contribution. But the irony of all this is it might be at the end of the day that he did carry this team to a championship. Curry's been incredible, but looking at the body of work, this antiquated notion that somehow everybody wants, you got to really have to work for it, as if he didn't put in the work, as if he didn't have what was diagnosed as a season-ending injury, worked harder than anybody, as if he didn't defer to a system that was better than the one he came from, absorb that criticism both publicly and internally, had Draymond Green in his face when he was pounding the ball against Memphis in January, in front of the entire world, deferred when it was necessary, completely committed himself to the defensive end of the floor, and again, did what was impossible, which made the best team even better. There was not much room for growth there for the Warriors. That's to their credit. They were already amazing. And so this idea that there's some sort of asterisk affixed to this championship if they close them out, and by the way, might do it in 16 games, which in and of itself is historic, so let's put that on the resume as well. I just don't get it.
I love how Stugotz isn't here and he still gets somebody worked up with his terrible takes. Because that's as worked up as
that's
Kevin
how hot
has been.
they are.
I'm not easily worked up, as you know.
Kev, so how do you see this playing out, assuming this series ends in the next game or two? How do you see this playing out in the future in terms of this Warriors team being viewed? Are they going to be viewed as everybody's favorite dynasty, or are they going to be... I have a hard time believing they're sort of evil empire when you've got the faces of Steph Curry and Kevin Durant on there.
Even more than that, they're fun to watch. For all the stuff about persona with these guys and who's likable and who's not, at the end of the day, I want to sit and watch 2 hours and 20 minutes of the Warriors play basketball. It's a great-looking product. It is fun. And I think there will always be a segment of fans who root for the underdog, and this team is so loaded with talent that it's going to be hard for certain fans, I think, to root for them as in a conventional sense because you want to see the underdog win, and that's going to happen probably in the next few years. There are going to be you don't want to root for them to be knocked off just for sheer novelty. But I think they're just I think the appeal of the Warriors, yes, it's about the faces of these players we like, but at the end of the day, it's basketball. You're tuning in, you're watching the game. Is this something you want to see? Are you excited for the? I think you get this feeling when the Warriors are playing well that you can't wait for them to get the ball back. You just can't wait for that missed shot of the other team. So what are they going to do when they rebound this ball in the next 15 seconds? And I think at the end of the day, that is sort of their appeal. It's just a great product.
Kev, you're the best, and don't worry. Stugotz takes they go away, they disappear, and all of a sudden it's
He'll
nothing
have a
for you
new
to worry
one
about
tomorrow.
It's okay, I'm unlisted. So
thanks again.
Don't forget, you can hear more of my sons Dan and Stu weekdays starting at 10 Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPNU.
You're listening to Love Advice with Leanne. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Leanne. Longtime listener, first-time caller. Why, in your professional opinion, do you never take my calls off the air?
Is this Carl?
Yep, it's Carl. We had a few dates. Everything was great. I thought,
Well, when you switch to Geico, you could save a lot of money on car insurance.
Okay, awesome.
You should call them.
I will.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Don Le Batard.
Texter writes in, does Rob Ryan chew his food? No. He swallows pizza whole. He eats pizza like a pelican.
Stugotz.
The way that Rob Ryan eats pizza is he goes down and he grabs the crust with his mouth, and then he flips it up in the air to himself and then swallows the piece of pizza whole without any chewing and just sort of wiggles his head and neck around so that it slides down the eating pipe.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Dan Le Batard Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And now your SportsCenter update. Gene Smith, Ohio State Senior Vice President and Wolf Foundation Endowed Athletics Director, announced the hiring of Butler's Chris Holtmann as the next head men's basketball coach of the Buckeyes. The Houston Astros have placed pitcher Dallas Keuchel back on the 10-day disabled list due to neck discomfort. He was previously on the 10-day DL for a pinched nerve in his back. And finally, a New York appeals court says chimpanzees don't have the same rights as people. For all the latest headlines and information, tune into SportsCenter on ESPN Radio all throughout the day. Now, this isn't why we decided to have Steve Levy on the show today, but let's try to get to the bottom of this with Steve Levy. Steve, thanks for joining us. Appreciate the time.
How you guys doing?
Doing fantastic, man. Doing fantastic. So, why is it the Stanley Cup final versus, like in the NBA, being the finals?
There's only one, guys.
So have we been just saying it wrong in the NBA the whole time?
No, it's by design. You can look at their artwork on both. And then before the Stanley Cup final every year, I take a picture of the ice, and I'm like, people, it's singular, NBA is plural, and that's just the way it is. And I think they like to differentiate themselves from each other. And Stanley Cup final seems to be special. Look, you guys know everything about hockey is different. Everything about the personalities, the players themselves, the way they go about their business, the way they conduct themselves off the ice in a lot of ways. And so why shouldn't the name of their championship series be different also?
The Chicago Tribune did an investigation, and they came upon the answer based on responses from the NHL and the NBA and an expert from the University of Chicago that both forms are grammatically correct since final is a noun that has a singular and plural form, and you can either view it as a collection of singular events that make one final or a finals because it consists of several parts.
Someone actually put a lot of time into that, huh?
There you go.
Pretty good.
So another thing that we didn't necessarily have you on to ask you about, but when we were doing our pre-show fist fight, talking about what we wanted to talk about, this came up. I feel like, just from my perspective, sort of from afar, where I wasn't watching the Canadians every single day and paying attention to the intricacies of their dynamics, that I was surprised by the trade of PK Subban and continue to be surprised by those who don't like him, particularly someone like an announcer like Mike Milbury, who, of course, has quite a history, but coming out and saying things like he's a clown who should get a rap on the head or he had this coming. Why do you think there is so much animus towards PK Subban?
He is a polarizing figure, there is no doubt, and it is rare. Look, he's a legitimate superstar, so I don't know, there aren't many one-on-one superstar trades in all of sports, right? I mean, that's a pretty rare thing. Usually it's a contract dump or to acquire a draft pick. These are two superstars of the league. One is certainly in his prime, and PK and maybe Shea Weber is a little, into the second part of his career, but so that was rare to begin with. But I think you have to look at the culture, and some of that's kind of what I said before. Hockey sort of conducts themselves differently on the ice and off. The players are not about the celebration, right? It's very rare when someone goes wild after a goal celebration. Most of the time, you put your arm in the air and you wait for your teammates to surround you, and that's it. And so PK is flamboyant. I don't know if you've caught the way he dresses. I mean, he dresses un-hockey-like. He wears a purple suit and a black fedora, and he might be wearing the same suit every single game because that's the only outfit I've seen him in outside of his uniform. Maybe that's a superstitious luck thing. So he's different, but I think he's good for the game. I love what PK is all about. He is fun to watch on the ice. He's real cool off the ice as well. And by the way, he's an outstanding player. He's a terrific player who has changed his game for the better of the team. Melrose used to like to joke that he was dangerous in all three zones in Montreal, okay? Mm-hmm. He's a great offensive player, but, gave up some chances in his own end. But in Nashville, he's totally changed his game. He's a shutdown defenseman now. He's playing against the top line of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and that's why he finds himself on the ice against Crosby all the time.
Sorry, Izzy, but since Dan isn't here, I have to ask it. Your description of hockey and their embrace or disinterest in PK and his style sounds a lot like this sort of baseball play the game the white way, where there's this new versus old, and a lot of it comes down to race and expectation.
It's different. It's different. I think they've been doing it 100 years this way. I'm not willing to throw race into it. It's the same thing. Hey, we've been fighting in hockey forever. Fighting's been legal outside of a 5-minute penalty, now hockey's gotten away from it. But you know what? You still don't get kicked out of the game for fighting, and so I think everybody would agree that fighting is now wrong. Right? We've seen the concussions, we've seen all the head injuries. Bare knuckle fighting is wrong in a lot of the sports, and yet hockey still does it their way. So They've been playing hockey, and hockey players have been acting this way for a long time, and it's been an accepted part of the game. It's slowly going away. I do think we'll get away from it. I think we're probably 5 or 6 years away from hockey. You get in a fight, you get kicked out, not just a 5-minute penalty. But they have their traditions, and he's a different cat. He's a different guy.
We are chilling in the Levy Lounge this afternoon.
Yeah. And I just want to add, he fits in perfectly in Nashville, which is one of the great entertainment capitals of the world. He showed up there, guys, right after the trade we talked about, and he was on stage at Tootsie's.
At the Honky Tonks, right on Broadway.
Johnny Cash. I mean, how cool is that?
It's
and
awesome.
that, too, is unhockey-like. Right? Hockey guys aren't getting on stage by themselves. They sort of fall back into
everything
the group.
you're saying is sort of disproved by the Blackhawks, but they might be more the outlier because they do celebrate like crazy after goals. Guys like Patrick Kane with the fist pumps and the sliding across the ice, and they are out in Chicago doing live band karaoke and partying with everybody. So I don't know if maybe it's partly based on like the city and the franchise.
It's some of the personalities, right? But for the most part, I think it's just it's a quiet. It's not a look at me. It's a team first kind of thing. And like I said, PK has bought into the system. He did not have to change his game, and I'm telling you, he has revolutionized his personal game for the better of that team. We had him on the other night. He's blocking shots in Nashville. He didn't do that in Montreal. He was all go offense in Montreal for the most part, and in Nashville, he's changed. He's a shutdown defenseman. It's rare you see a star player change his role completely. And to PK's credit, he really has. It's a lot like Steve Yzerman. If you want to go back in the day, Yzerman was all offense, right? 100-point guy, 50-goal guy. And Scotty Bowman said, "Hey, we need you to change for the better of the team." And Steve became much more defensive-minded as a center iceman, and they went on to win Stanley Cups.
Tootsie's is a very different establishment here in South Florida. Subban would not be on stage there.
You know what? I said that too. We did Sports Center from Tootsie's, and I said this is the only Tootsie's in America that is a country bar
that you could do a show from. How about that? Yeah, Steve. So the beginning of this Subban Crosby beef had to do with the Listerine comment or the bad breath comment turned into a big thing, and then yesterday it looked like Sidney Crosby was sort of digging Subban's face into the ice when they were both on the ice. Let's listen to this sound from Crosby explaining what exactly happened there and get your response to that, Levy.
He was doing some UFC move on my foot, so I don't know what he was trying to do, but I was trying to get out of there. He had lost a stick. He's just trying to hold me down, and I don't know what he was trying to do to my ankle. But
is that why you're hitting his head?
I was just trying to. I was in some kind of lock he had going on there. I don't know what it was.
Lies.
I don't see that. I watched the clip 12 times this morning. I do not see him pulling a UFC move on his ankle.
I think he's just holding on to him. But Barry and I both said last night, Crosby's got to get the extra 2 minutes there.
Yeah.
Does Sid get preferential treatment? He's the face of the league, probably. If it was against someone else other than Subban, who is also a controversial figure, maybe it does happen. But Subban isn't shy to this kind of stuff too. He's involved. He's in his face, and that's a good trade for Nashville. Anytime they can get Crosby off the ice for 2 minutes.
So what do you expect out of the next game? Do you see? I mean, Preds have been outstanding at home. Do you see them forcing a Game 7?
I don't. Everybody else does because I think that's the great story. I don't think so. I think Pittsburgh's the better team. I think Nashville knows they're the better team. The Predators have become, North America's sweethearts, not just America, North America. They've been such a great story. I've been rooting for them because I love the story. I love what they've done in Nashville. Every other franchise has been put on notice about the way they do their entertainment to try to, the bar has been raised because of the way Nashville has gone about their business on and off the ice. But I think Pittsburgh's just a better team. I mean, that was a beating last night. I mean, that wasn't even 6-0. That was 9-0, and that score does not indicate that game was not nearly that close as 6-0 would tell you. So I think Pittsburgh, it's just their time. And Pekka Rinne, he probably needs a shutout or give up one goal, which is certainly possible. They could win 2-1. But we're in a time where we think home ice advantage is so overrated and nearly meaningless, as opposed to the NBA where it can mean a lot. And yet in this series, it's all been about the home team. So hey, a 7-game series would be awesome. That'd be great for hockey. But I just think the Penguins probably win and end this on Sunday night.
Steve, how much steam does that take out of the Predators and their momentum, like you mentioned, them being North America's team, if they don't finish this off and win? Will it just be like, it was a nice little story, and then we kind of forget about them?
Look, they won't say this. They are playing with house money, right? No, in essence, they were the 16th seed. I mean, that's insanity, right? You can imagine the NBA. You can't even be the 5 seed and get to the championship. And then the 4 seed doesn't even get there. So to be the 16th seed and make it to Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final speaks volumes. So they've. This is a franchise that is on the up and up. You're going to see a lot of Nashville for years to come. They've got some great young players. Again, they're doing it right. And here's the other hidden thing that's not so hidden. We've sort of touched on it. This is going to be a free agent destination. Mm-hmm. What young hockey star who's a free agent would not want to play in Nashville? No state income tax, lots to look at, great weather, an unbelievable fan base. You know what I mean? People are going to want to come to Nashville, and I mean great hockey players, too.
Steve, you've honestly been one of my favorite anchors for a long time, so thanks for the time. It's a pleasure to talk to you every time I get a chance.
Hey, call me anytime. Call me at home if you want to, Izzy. That'd be fun, too.
Can we come over?
Come over anytime. I'm not going to be
Let's
there.
watch the game.
I'm not going to be there, but why don't you come over?
That's no deal, then.
Dan Le Batard.
How much does the watch cost, Ludacris? How much?
I don't know. I got it for free. That's a good question.
Stugotz.
That's an indelicate question, right? You don't ask a woman what she weighs, and you don't ask a hip-hop star what his jewelry's worth, do you?
That's why he let me ask this question.
You really don't.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
If you missed any of the show, you can listen to all 3 hours of the Dan Le Batard Show on demand in the ESPN app, plus our Miami-only hour that airs before the show. And now you can subscribe to our Best Of podcast. It's all available in the Listen tab of the ESPN app. We're proud to share that Mike and Mike have been nominated for the National Radio Hall of Fame, and this vote will be determined by the fans. Vote by text or online at radiovote.com. Text 49400 and send the message 70 for Mike and Mike. Again, that's 49400 and send the message 70 to vote for Mike and Mike. Or go online at www.radiovote.com and cast your vote there.
Chair getting to you?
One vote's permitted by cell and email address. Voting closes June 19th. The chair is just a theory because
I'm in a
different chair and I still can't.
Oh. So
it's just a lot of reading. I get I feel terrible for Stugotz. Like our Miami only hour is tough to say if you're trying to say it fast.
I'm looking forward to my shot in the chair. I feel extremely confident.
And you have to get down to the warm weather. Well, it's all warm
I'm going to do accents like a me, and that's how confident I am.
I can read. I don't have confidence in my accents. A couple quick tweets.
Whatever. You crushed the on Around the Horn Halloween episode. You carried that Conor McGregor accent for the whole show.
And it took weeks of practice. Like,
really?
In my car, I'm sitting there just randomly repeating stuff that they say on the radio in an Irish accent to see if I can pull it off.
I had 2 accents on that show, and I listened to Adele for like 10 minutes before the show started. And I was like, and here we go.
Yeah. It's not my strong suit, is impersonating others. So a couple quick tweets. And these are hilarious. Talking about race, Steve Levy goes into a 10-minute soliloquy on the history of fighting.
Some people thought he sort of avoided my question.
And here's another tweet. You guys know that they don't like PK Subban because he's a black man. All those code words, flashy, etc. FOH. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and step away from that subject real quick.
Okay, Stugotz.
We'll cannonball out of here and shift over to
Cannonball!
It sounds so much more fun to just be in a pool party instead of talking about race and getting people mad at you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can jump in the pool. It's heavy that way. So getting back to this idea, I asked Kevin Arnovitz about the Warriors kind of looking ahead and being a potential evil empire, right? Like, it's hard, and he said it's hard to dislike them, especially if you like basketball, because they're so much fun to watch. And Steph Curry has a likable quality about him. But we've talked about this, you and I have, Sarah. Maybe he's a bit of a trash talker, and we just kind of let it go because he's cutesy-wootsy. But really, he does this a lot. He really is a flashy player. And here's what he had to say in terms of getting trash-talked or trash-talking to others, because he had that little fracas with Iman Shumpert in Game 3.
I mean, I smile and laugh and have fun and play with joy and all that's kind of who I am. But, yeah, I have a killer instinct in me. There's a toughness about me that, I'm out on the floor. You can't really just try to push me around or try to be physical. That really doesn't get under my skin at all. Last night was it was much ado about nothing, to be honest with you. And it was a situation where you're just talking. And at this point, you know that when two guys kind of get into it, chirping a little bit, there's going to be a reaction around on the floor from the refs, from teams, and all that kind of stuff. But I don't trash talk much. I'm not afraid to talk back if I need to, but I try to stay out of those situations and not get distracted from what I'm trying to do on the floor from an execution standpoint and just doing my thing.
Sarah, I think somebody who gets trash talked that is as good as Steph is and is as sort of physically, not really intimidating, right? His physical stature. I think they need to trash talk back even more aggressively or even smarter or wittier because, you're just going to get talked down to because they think, you're the little guy. And like LeBron last year, turning around and looking at him, staring at him and talking some trash after he blocked him. So I think in that respect, Steph probably, in terms of talking directly to his opponents, I wouldn't mind if he does it more.
Right. I don't think he probably does it that much to his opponents. It's more the sort of abstract, right? It's the kicking after the shot and the kind of shimmy shakes and the giggles and the grins. He doesn't bother me. You've brought this up before that you think that he's more that you view his trash talking more negatively than I do. I think he's incredibly impish, and I realize that part of that is his size and his baby face, and the way that I view him is very much affected by his physicality. But have always been for the showiness of sports. I like celebrations and I like swagger and I even like Draymond most of the time when he's being demonstrative, not when he's kicking people or playing outside the rules of basketball, but I like a demonstrative player, and they're all very different in the way that they showcase themselves. But Steph's never bothered me in that way.
Yeah, I don't think of it I don't think of it negatively. It doesn't bother me. I'm just saying the way he's viewed is not as somebody who's, a trash talker or a showman, and he is absolutely those things. But this is what's funny to me because there are certain things that he can do to tick people off, in large part because he is this sort of clean-cut, everyman type of guy.
Right, and it's like, this is a bad analogy to use because it doesn't always work this way, but it's sort of like the girlfriend who says something to a guy at a game, knowing that guy's not going to fight her, he's going to fight the boyfriend that she's with. It's sort of like he knows that in almost any circumstance, even if he's the instigator, the guy who's picking on him is going to look worse.
Right.
Because
Unless
he's just Steph and he's cute and likable and he's just having fun out there.
Unless he takes a poop on the court.
Literally?
No, which is what he seemed to mimic during Game 3. And
I did see that.
Right, and he was asked about it.
Did you buy that as I didn't buy that conspiracy theory.
Let's hear Steph because he was asked about it yesterday.
It's all spontaneous. I wish I could have a little bit more control over the reactions in certain situations. I really don't know what I did last night. I saw it. No, I saw it. I don't know what I was doing. And I even dropped my mouthpiece because I was so uncoordinated in that sense. So,
first of all,
you can't wear a mouthpiece while you're taking a dump.
Well, that guy does not know how to wear a mouthpiece. Period. So that has nothing to do with anything.
Never in his mouth.
You can't tell me that guy is uncoordinated. First of all, second of all, rather. But I do believe that he doesn't know what he did. It was just an awkward celebration. But that means it doesn't rule out the, maybe in a split second I decided to mock pooping on the floor.
Right. It's sort of like Kevin Durant and Rihanna. I actually don't remember that. I'm not sure what was going on there. It slipped my mind.
Yeah. But if he does stuff like that, if he goes over the top with it, I think people are just going to be like,
I think that's just crass, too. It's not the joyful trash talking and the swagger that we like. It's just crassness, which is very different.
And you wouldn't expect that from him.
And not from him. Right, I was going to say, if it's Chad Ochocinco, was he the one who pretended to poop the football?
Oh, I'm not sure. No, that was a lot more recently. That was a lot more recently than Chad Ochocinco.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if it's somebody that is known for pushing the envelope, then that's
Doug Baldwin.
Doug Baldwin. There you go. Then it's cool. But I think part of it is your quote unquote brand, right? So if the nature of your trash talking fits in with what we expect from you, and for Steph, that's a very swagger, fun, joyful way of expressing himself. I think where it would take a turn is if he seemed really nasty. I think people wouldn't feel like that was genuine, and then that would turn them against him.
I want Steph, after they win this championship, to not even be veiled about it, to just flat out say he was upset at LeBron last year in the finals. and that he really, really, really wanted this, and he really wanted it to be against LeBron.
Which would be surprising because we've seen both of these teams completely posture about their rivalry, right? Oh, they're not a rival. We just make cookies of their gravestones.
Right, exactly. Not a rival at all. All right, we'll get into more NBA Finals. It's Izzy Gutierrez and Sarah Spain filling in for Dan Lebitard and Stugotz. I should probably mention that a little bit more often.
Dan Lebitard.
Good work today. That was a fun show.
Stugotz.
It was also intergalactically stupid.
This is the Dan Lebitard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Funny tweet here from Mike Zimmer's ears. Ironically, none of the strippers at the prison dance in cages. There was a rumor I wanted to discuss, an NBA-related rumor, but before I get there, I wanted to let Mike discuss a rumor that has him a lot more excited than the one I was about to talk about.
Oh, yeah. Mark Stein tweets out, free agency scuttle. Great word.
Uh-oh.
Volume is rising on the whispers that the team Utah is worrying about when it comes to Gordon Hayward's free agency is Miami. They're worried about Miami just as much as Boston.
And they should be. If you're not worried about Pat Riley, you're making a mistake.
When the volume of the whisper is rising, does it then become a hushed tone or regular conversation?
Well, apparently they have risen to the level of a scuttle.
Ooh.
Is it like a scuttlebutt, just a little bit less?
It's a character limit at play, and that's what the scuttle's for.
That is a witty Mark Stein.
So how do you feel about the potential of this gentleman?
That'd be awesome.
Taking his talents to South Beach.
Are you kidding me? That'd be great. I don't know how Pat's going to swing it, but I mean, he's done a lot of he's done a lot of big swinging before. But taking Gordon Hayward, if Gordon Hayward leaves Utah, taking him away from his college coach would be really impressive.
You're going to have to keep swinging because if your swings are Hassan Whiteside, Gordon Hayward, go get me a championship, that's not happening.
Now, it's not just his college coach, Brad Stevens, and a well-respected coach at that. The perception, and I think perception's a key word here, is that Boston is a lot closer than Miami because Miami missed the playoffs, obviously, and Boston went to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they also have the number 1 overall pick, which is a huge asset, or at the very least, they get perceivably a good player, a really good player. Yeah. But if you look at how Miami ended the season and how generally those teams in the East, outside of Cleveland, anything can flip from year to year.
It has felt like even after LeBron left that Miami could still be a destination that would be hard to fight up, especially in Chicago. We're always losing players to other big markets and wondering why Chicago can't get them in. And with all of the benefits of being in Miami, and still, do you believe that Pat Riley still has the cachet of a guy who can create something?
Well, there's two camps, and Izzy could probably speak on this because a lot of fans out there might not understand why the Miami Heat sort of went for it. Even some of the fans were like, why aren't you tanking? If you're not making the playoffs, what's the point? Be as bad as possible. But I feel like the Miami Heat, in their turnaround, their midseason turnaround, really recovered a lot of that reputation that they had before. And rebuilding careers like James Johnson and Dion Waiters, they weren't a joke. No team wanted to see them in the playoffs. They were one of the best teams in the NBA after the All-Star break. So I feel like they really boosted up their rep, because before Waiters came back from that ankle injury, things were at probably an all-time low around here in terms of morale.
And it's just, there's I don't know if it's a karma or what have you, but there's just a feel for a championship-level franchise just feels dirty, to tank like that. Like when the Lakers were kind of, it's just like, ooh, you're the Lakers. What do you need to do that for?
I'm also kind of curious, there's this long-held belief that the way that Reinsdorf interacted with Jordan and others has turned people away from the Bulls organization. Riley now getting a lot of heat for how things ended with his players, but it's tempered by this sort of respect for him knowing when to cut the cord with guys who may not be at the top of their game. How do you view free agents seeing what kind of level of respect and loyalty they'll get from the Heat?
Pat's already been putting the work in on that. You've read his quotes lately. He's, basically kissing butt of LeBron and Dwayne Wade. So he's repairing those publicly anyway, and I don't think it's going to be a factor whatsoever when it comes to other free agents.
And you saw they got a meeting with Kevin Durant when, they made it to the Eastern Conference semis, but they had no business getting a meeting, and they made an impression, obviously, because Durant had very positive quotes about the Miami Heat organization and Eric Spoelstra. So if you get him in a room, he's dangerous.
Spoelstra put in a really good bid for those who might not have respected his coaching skill and attributed too much of it to the talent he had.
So here's the rumor that I wanted to get to. Speaking of the Lakers, this is from the Ringer. Multiple sources I've spoken to think the Lakers or Clippers are viable destinations for King James when he's a free agent in 2018. Jalen Rose said this week on First Take that he expects LeBron to make a move from Cleveland to California, where he already owns a house 30 minutes away from Staples Center. I believe that was the one in Brentwood that got vandalized. The Lakers make sense if LeBron wants to build a sustainable winner with a core blend of veterans and youthful talent like Paul George. If, as NBA gossip suggests, George is truly hell-bent on going to L.A. The Clippers make sense if LeBron wants to form a banana boat Voltron with Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, and Carmelo Anthony. I think what's interesting to me about this, two things. One, if he leaves after next year, will that not have been 4 more years in Cleveland, right? 4 years in Miami, 4 years in Cleveland. Go somewhere else. He's going to be Mr. Fo. But what I wonder is what we're going to look at him like if he does these things kind of in the ring-chasing mode. As opposed to leading the way.
Do you like the idea of LeBron continuing to change teams and proving he can do it in so many different places?
I like it because it makes the league interesting. I'd rather him in the Clippers 2 years from now than another run with the Cavs. And that's just because of boredom, I guess.
Right, I guess. So I think it's great for the fans as far as the intrigue of these new storylines. As far as, I guess, legacy goes or how we view his through line as a player, do you think it changes how you see him if he has a bunch of different stops?
I think he's already somebody that we've never seen before, and somebody whose moves we've never seen, and somebody whose sort of control of the league we've never seen. Therefore, whatever LeBron's story is when it's all said and done will be 100% unique, and if it means it was 3 teams and he won so many titles, then that's just a story. But you're still comparing the player and his ability and his accomplishments to other players, not necessarily what uniform he's on. But you do have to factor in the teammates, but it doesn't matter what uniform they're wearing.
But I guess there's a real feeling of things coming full circle, coming back to the Cavs, right? That he needed to go somewhere and get those championships and then come back and try to bring that to his hometown. What would the impetus be behind going somewhere else? Would it feel like he's then abandoning the place that he said he was coming back to save?
Well, he would justify all those things. Oh, I won a title. I did this. They treated me poorly. I didn't want to be stuck in the same situation. Real quick before we go. Andre Iguodala saying he didn't feel LeBron James kicking him in the junk. Good or bad for him to say? Probably not good, right? Probably shouldn't say that, right?
I'm going to recuse myself on this one.
All right, well, Sarah, I think we did a decent job here. Hopefully, we ended the week like normal people, talking sports, not at a club at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Thanks for listening, guys.